it seemed as if all he wanted was to watch him suffer.
It's interesting because when I read about that same event, in my mind, it's like, yes, he is killing these fish wantonly, but it also was sort of like a protest because he was not well liked as a kid, like generally, like he had friends and shit. But it seems that he did that specifically to make the other kids upset more than anything, where he went like, yeah, caught fish. And they're all like, okay, because they would go and they'd throw the smaller ones back. And he's like, but I'm keeping this one. And he would like put it on the lawn and they'd catch another one like, hey, see? Got another fish. And they're like, great. Do what you got to do with it. And then he'd like throw it down, smoke a cigarette even though he's 11. Just like watching all the kids like writhe on the thing and him staring at them being like, I can do this all day. We're like, do it. Do it. We're fishing. We're hanging out.
Okay. I mean, not the worst animal cruelty we've ever heard.
It's not, no, but it's still animal cruelty. No, it's still wanting to watch a living thing suffer.
Was it possible he was just trying to progress evolution? What if those fish all just started to breathe oxygen for the first time? Didn't need water anymore.
But even though Lee sounds like a massive pain in the ass, he still managed to make a couple of friends. And one, William Wolfe, bonded with Lee over a shared love of history. Because Oswald was smart enough to be curious about history, but still self-absorbed enough to only apply it to himself.
Hey, man, you ever see pictures of goblins? They're always in groups. Goblins love friends.
That's true.
So at this friend's house, Lee discovered a book about communism, and something inside Lee's head immediately identified with communist thought. And before William knew it, Lee was scouring New Orleans for a communist cell to join. He's about 14.
I mean, it is a little bit like Roger Stone. It's just a little bit like, that's not normal for 14-year-olds. But I guess it does require a level of interest in society, though, which is interesting.
It absolutely does.
But it kind of reminds me of kids that wanted to be punk, but the way they started it was just by putting like glue in their hair.
When William Wolfe's father heard Lee extolling the virtues of communism in his own home, he kicked Lee out the door. But the damage was done. From that day forward, Oswald would at least claim to be an ardent communist. Now, it's a matter of conjecture as to why communism appealed to Oswald so strongly, but we think that it might have something to do with Lee's contrarian nature. See, in 1955, in America, about the most provocative thing you could be was a communist. If you were an out-and-out communist, you were hated and somewhat feared, and you certainly got attention. I actually don't think Lee Harvey Oswald believed in anything. To put it in modern parlance, Lee Harvey Oswald was a troll.
Ooh. There it is. There he is. I wonder if he believed in anything or not. That's one of those eternal questions about the inner nature of Lee Harvey Oswald, because he does walk the walk quite a bit. Like, he does throw a lot of the terminology around, and he says to espouse it. But I really do. My heart of hearts tells me, reading about what he's doing, the way he does his performative communism to everyone around him. It does seem he's doing it just to be a pain in the ass.
We've all known that guy. Many of us were friends with him in college and still are today.
But besides that, Oswald was probably also just looking to belong to something. And communism gave Lee everything he was looking for when it came to being a part of a group. Because the whole point is to be a part of a group. The whole point is to be a part of something.
It reminds me quite a bit of Berkowitz and Gacy. This is kind of where it comes to, because they both love their groups. You know, like Berkowitz became an evangelist Christian. Gacy became, part of the JCs very famously. But those guys actually kind of made friends within their circles. And like Lee Harvey Oswald only ever made enemies. No one ever liked him, even when the communist community. And I think it comes down to because it's just easier to make friends with somebody when they're a little bit chunky.
He was too thin. The whole problem is, is this entire episode going to conclude with, then he went on Jenny Craig and was able to get up to the book depository and he shot Kennedy because finally he was on the right meal program.
You got to eat first to act right.
That's true.
You got to eat right to act right.
I agree with that.
So by the time Lee was 16, he dropped out of school and started working menial jobs where he would extol the virtues of communism to his coworkers, casually commenting that President Eisenhower should be killed for exploiting workers.
I literally knew 10 of these guys when I worked at the Strand. It's why they worked there. They were hired there because of their ranting at customers.
Now, many have wondered why Oswald was able to talk so openly about his allegiance to communism without any real repercussions, when so many Americans during this time were being destroyed for something as small as attending one communist meetup 20 years previous. For those of you unfamiliar with this time in American history, the 1950s were the time of the Red Scare, and many Americans believed that communism was insidiously gaining a foothold in America in order to change the system from the inside out.
Ooh.
No! No! I don't want health care!
So, to prevent this supposed threat, thousands of people in both the government and in the entertainment industry in particular were blacklisted from working if they had even the smallest connection to communist thought. Even if you had gone to a communist meeting in 1924, if it came out during the McCarthy hearings in the 50s, you were fucked.
I'm not going to go watch a commie actor. I'm not watching a commie actor as the customer. I'm fine with the purge. Get rid of him.
It just sucks. If you bought a sickle from a Polish guy in 1925, you could not write movies anymore.
Okay.
But for the most part, the people being blacklisted were people of influence, or at the very least, people who might have some consequence on the lives of others. Lee Harvey Oswald was no such person. He was of no consequence, and therefore not worth the effort, because, again, governmental organizations are run by actual people with limited resources, and running down a teenage clerical worker wasn't exactly at the top of their fucking list.
I tell you what, though, I went outside of that CIA building. I told you what I went out there and I told him. I told him what I was. You know what the guy said? You know what the guy said? You know the nerve to tell me? You know the nerve to tell me? He said, I'm small potatoes.
Really?
You know what I tell him? You know what I told him, buddy? You know what, buddy? Actually, I'm big potatoes. I'm bigger potatoes than you think. These potatoes are going to come rolling out so big that you're going to wonder what to do with them. You're not going to have a microwave to be able to deal with how big my potatoes are.
Hey, CIA boss, there's an unemployed chef outside. He's talking about potatoes. Do you just want to
These
give
ain't
him a
medium potatoes.
job? Or
These ain't pequeña potatoes. These are grinded potatoes.
Okay, just want to come in? Do you want to cook for us?
I'd love to use the bathroom.
No problem. Those are some big potatoes.
Now, even though Marguerite pretty much waited on Lee hand and foot, she was also an overbearing, oppressive figure. He wanted to get the fuck away from her. So, when Lee came of age, he joined the Marines, partly to get away from his mother, and partly to belong to something.
That is quite fascinating, though, right? Obviously, he couldn't be that much of a communist if he's going to join the Marines when the U.S. was actively at war with communism.
At the time, I mean, it was something to do because all of his brothers had all done the same thing. He wanted to get the fuck away from his mother. He didn't know how, and he knew that his brothers had all gotten away from her by going to the Marines, so he figured, all right, I'll do it too.
We have nagging mothers to thank for half of the people in the military.
Yes. That's how my father joined the Navy. But he truly emulated his older brother. What you'll see, too, is he kind of modeled a little bit of his life off of his older brother, which kind of created this inner competition just within their family, because the older brother left the nest, right, and made a life for himself where he got a wife and kids, and he's leading a so-called normal life in the 1950s, and his mom kind of opposed them towards each other. Like, she kind of made them fight each other. She put them in competition, essentially saying, well, Lee, you'll always be the most special boy because you stayed home with mommy. You stayed home. And your brother fucked off and left the family, which kind of, it was weird. It's all this push and pull of hate and love.
And it also tells you how much he truly believed in communism. You know, if he was truly into this shit, then yeah, he wouldn't have joined the Marines.
Exactly.
But it tells you it's more of an act.
Okay.
It's a slippery slope because he joined that flight club too, where the little boys learn to fly, which is a crazy program to think about it. In the 1950s, they just taught fucking 15-year-olds how to fly planes. They would go and they would take these kids, and then that ended up being fucking wildly connected deeper into Lee Harvey Oswald's life when we find out his flight teacher from when he was 14 years old is some big, he's embroiled deep in the Cuban conspiracy world, whoo, a lot.
When you said Flight Club, I thought he was really into Nikes.
Oh, hell yeah, bro. Fuck yeah, dog.
Henry is the guy he's talking about is the guy that Joe Pesci played in the movie JFK.
Okay.
Yeah, he had
He has
alopecia.
he has the pasted on eyebrows. And he wore a wig with a chin strap.
They really could have telegraphed that he had alopecia a little bit more in JFK because it just looked like he was wearing a bad costume.
Yeah.
So, Lee Harvey Oswald reported for duty, and by November of 1956, he was able to hit a 10-inch bullseye from 200 yards 8 times out of 10.
Wow.
Far from the terrible shot that many conspiracy theorists make him out to be. I mean, some just don't mention his shooting record, while others out and out lie. And speaking of the movie JFK, the most egregious example comes from Jim Garrison, who was famously played by Kevin Costner. Garrison said that Oswald was, quote, a notoriously poor shot and had an abysmal marksmanship record in the Marines. It's just a straight lie.
Marcus, can we go back and take that the proper way, the Kevin Costner performance way of the way he said it? Because you can't escape the gravity
All right, I'll try
of
it.
a Costner
I'll try it again.
performance.
Well, Oswald was a notoriously poor shot and had an abysmal marksmanship record in the Marines.
Hey, aren't you that dickhead who made a baseball stadium for ghosts? Why are you the defense attorney and the prosecutor? What's going on here? What are you?
I mean, well, Lee Harvey Oswald, he was average for the Marines, but that still means that he was a fucking excellent shot by any other metric.
I will take average for the Marines any day.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah, I tell you what, if I was going to kill JFK, I'd use a grenade. That'd be sweet as fuck, because that's my favorite video game weapon of all time. I love grenade launchers.
Yeah.
And shit like that. And you just fucking use a rocket launcher and blow up that whole shit.
Oh,
But,
I've been
again, I can't rewrite history.
No, you can't. I've been playing Days Gone. Grenade is too slow. You get sniped right in the head by the time you throw it.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. This is just a little side conversation for Marcus and I.
But that's
I
why
know,
you got to
I know.
cover yourself. Oh, the other way to really is cover yourself at C4 and run in there while he's having sex with Marilyn Monroe, right? And she's there. He's just like, "Oh, Marilyn, I'm gonna come all over." And I'm like, "Wait a second, Marilyn, hey!" And they're like, whoa! And I was like, "Well, I'm so glad that you came, Secretary of State." And I was like, "What?" Fucking fuck all this.
Not surprisingly, nobody in the Marines liked...
Oh, Marilyn.
I
I tell you what, Marilyn, I'm gonna come up inside them guts. Oh my God, what is it? Who is that? It's me, Henry Zabrowski. I'm here to assassinate. What?
Whoa.
Hey, Henry there. I couldn't help but notice you, Tiny Petey there. Wouldn't you want to join in on making love to this beautiful woman with me, sir? Yes, sir, Mr. President.
I'm surprised it took this long to get to a JFK having sex with Marilyn Monroe impression. And I'm happy we got there.
Whenever we got there. An hour. Actually, he waited a full hour.
Yep.
Episode 400.
We only have approximately 5 more episodes of this series for me to do those jokes.
And not surprisingly, nobody in the Marines liked Lee Harvey Oswald. Not necessarily because he was a dick, but mostly because he was just a meek, alienating figure, which that earned him the nickname Ozzy Rabbit, and that was eventually turned into Bugs. As in Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
It's not the
cool.
It's not the worst nickname.
I kind of like
Yeah, I like
Ozzy
that nickname.
Rabbit. Yeah, it's not bad. Bugs.
Now, he did try to fit in at first by being funny, probably because someone told him that's how you get people to like you. But since Oswald had no sense of humor whatsoever, just failed miserably.
Hey, Private Thompson, come here. Private Thompson, come here. Come here. Hey, knock, knock.
Oh, yeah.
Knock, knock. Say knock, knock.
oh,
When I say knock, knock, it's the beginning of a joke structure.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lee. I didn't know we were doing a joke here. Okay. Knock, knock.
Fuck you, buddy. I'm busy.
No. Lee, you're supposed...
Fuck you, buddy, knocking on my door without calling me. Sending me a text
Lee,
or something.
Lee, you're supposed to say, who's there?
Don't tell me what the fuck to say.
No, I'm not telling you, but if you wanted... That's the point of the knock, knock. I say knock, knock, and then you say, who's there?
Coming to my house
No,
without
I'm not.
inviting yourself? I didn't invite you to my what? Invite yourself over to my home?
Knock, knock, who's there? Say orange.
I ain't playing your wizard games with you anymore.
Okay.
Well, instead, Oswald fell back on aggression by trying to one-up everyone in every conversation, seizing on any small mistake made and berating the other person with those mistakes. Again, a fucking troll.
Would not berate a bunch of Marines. Like, they will get upset with you. Look what happened to Pat Tillman.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that Oswald, when he was growing up, he was always a year older than everybody else because he had moved around so much. That's just the way it happened when it came to schooling. And since he was older than everyone else, that meant that he was usually bigger than everyone else. And paired with his aggressive tendencies, that meant that Oswald was a fucking bully the whole time growing up.
Doesn't that mean he was, like, left behind? Can't you just be like, yeah, because you were left behind in school, you dummy?
Every single one of my bullies was left behind. Not a single one of my...
They had street
That's
smarts.
how you get...
Every single one of the kids that used to beat the shit out of me or broke bones or anything like that, all to the letter, every single one of those kids had been left behind at least once, and in one case had been left behind twice.
That's a strategy. That's a fighting strategy. You understand that you put yourself in a new weight class. You just put yourself in the weight class below. And Lee Harvey Oswald, he wasn't tiny, but he wasn't big. But just watching him, just imagining him screaming at all these Marines, he never tried, man. He never got it. He didn't understand what it was about making friends. Everybody had to come to him. Everybody had to worship him and pay fealty to him. They had to ask him questions. This is where it started, all of this weird shit. He kind of wanted to be worshipped.
Yeah, he did. Well. And the Marines, that shit didn't fly. I mean, Oswald was only, 5'8", and he had pretty much my build and had no fighting skills at all. So Oswald routinely got his ass kicked by the other Marines. But of course, Oswald believed that he was a great man, and the fact that no one else saw it caused great frustration, even though he, again, did absolutely fucking nothing to set him apart from his fellow soldiers. Eventually, Oswald was stationed in Japan, where he very quickly accidentally shot himself in the left arm while screwing around with a .22 caliber Derringer he'd bought just for fun.
See? That's funny. See, now he's finding humor.
But it's also the way he played it off, because he did it in sort of an embarrassing way where it happened, and then he tried to act all dignified because he walked into the room. They heard a gun go off while he was doing whatever in another room, and he walked out. And he's just like, "I appear to have shot myself." Like he said it like it was normal, like he fucking dropped the jar of peanut butter.
All right, he's getting a sense of humor here.
Well, as a result, he was passed up for a promotion and was assigned kitchen duty as punishment. Charges were brought up, and he was found guilty, given 20 days hard labor, fined $50, and demoted to the rank of private. Because doing something like this, the Marines just look at him and go, "What kind of fucking idiot are you?"
We were told that you were big potatoes, and big potatoes don't shoot themselves in the arm.
You say one more thing about my potatoes, I swear to God, I'm going to show you my oranges.
There you go. See? Knock, knock. Who's there? Who's there?
I didn't invite you to my home.
But you said orange, and we're getting there.
Naturally, Oswald saw none of this as his fault, and he started down the same train of thought his mother had taught him to follow when she took him out of the home for the disturbed boys and moved him back to New Orleans from New York.
If you don't find you shooting yourself in your arm to be your fault, you have a psychological problem. There's no other possible answer.
Society did not do that to
you. Not possible.
No, your mother did that to you.
It was a Derringer.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that. It's not even that complicated of a gun. It's one bullet. He shot an entire gun's worth of bullets into himself.
Well, the way he saw it, the problem in the Marines wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. The problem was the United States of America.
Yeah, man!
And so Oswald began to seriously think about defecting to what he thought was the communist utopia of the Soviet Union.
It's so much fun over there.
Yeah, and when I think the word utopia, the first things that come to my mind is the brown and gray world of the USSR.
Yep, wonderful.
Well, during his last few months in the Marines, Oswald would try to read Russian newspapers. He'd play loud Russian music in the barracks. And he did all this shit so much that all the rest of the Marines started calling him Oswaldkovich, which, of course, he fucking loved. And he made everyone call him Oswaldkovich.
Shit. Honestly, that's what you do. You lean into the nickname, and I guess he did that.
He called everyone comrade. he'd pepper his conversations with da and yet.
Oh my God, where did he fucking study abroad?
Kids are using the word comrade again, and I just have to say don't use it.
I like it.
I hate the word comrade.
What's wrong with comrade?
Because we have words called friend or buddy or pal or Bob.
Comrade's so much more fun.
You are quickly doing... We're losing Marcus, Henry.
Unfortunately, Sammy Hagar ruined the current usage of the term amigo. I would use it more. I love Sammy Hagar, but it's just his use of it. It really destroys the entire word.
Yeah, I mean, Lee Harvey Oswald also owned copies of Das Kapital, just kept them in his bunk, and oddly, also owned copies of Mein Kampf and Animal Farm, which are about the most anti-communist books you can get.
Just mixing it up.
Yeah, but
They're just mixing it up. Honestly, you got to have a lot of different sources. See how other people think about stuff. Sometimes it helps to get another perspective.
yeah, but isn't Animal Farm an analogy for what happened during the Holocaust?
No, for what happened during Stalin's Russia.
During Stalin's
Yeah,
Russia.
it's an anti-Stalinist.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
I see.
anti-authoritarian. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, well,
It's
good thing.
almost like he didn't know what he was talking about. But I tell you what, Das Kapital is my favorite album by Helmut.
Helmut!
But again, nobody cared about any of this because Oswald was of no consequence. Nobody thought that Lee Harvey Oswald was someone to take seriously. I mean, he was a Marine telling everyone, I am a communist on a military base. No one gave a shit.
Can that really be blamed on him? I guess that I struggle with this question all the time. Like, how did he make it as long as he did within the Marines while he was spouting all this horseshit? Is it just like, can you just be so annoying and lame that nobody cares? It's like you surpass your un-American activities during the height of anti-communist fever in the country. You could just be that much of a loser that you take yourself out of competition for being a real communist?
I think so. Like, I think you really can be such an asshole that people don't care about anything you do. They just don't take you seriously because, again, if you're not a person of consequence and you're not a threat, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I guess also we were kind of at a relative time of peace. We got the Korean War. The Korean War is going to come up, but I guess also maybe that was it.
That was after the Korean War.
This is after the Korean War?
Yeah, Korean War's done.
Yeah, that's weird.
When was that?
50s.
I thought, we're not in, okay.
No, this is like 1959. Well, eventually, Oswald got out of the Marines on a dependency discharge owing to who else but his mother. A candy jar had fallen off a shelf.
Yep.
And smacked Marguerite right in the face. And although
That's how he got out of the Marines.
That's how he got out of the Marines, which kind of makes me think they wanted him out of the Marines.
But that is also how horrible candy used to be. You could just die if like a jar of candy fell on you because it was just half bricks.
Yes, it was musket bullets that you had to suck on for hours. There was no pleasure. It was a duty. Candy used to be a chore to teach you patience. That you have to suck on concrete until you wear it down with your lips until you get the just real apricot flavor center that it's just but that's what you deserved.
It was literally
because we had a sacrifice for our boys.
We did. It was called rock candy, as a matter of fact, I think.
I mean, Oswald, every single performance review he had got had been exceedingly low. He'd been in the brig, I think, twice for fighting and various other activities. I think the Marines just wanted him fucking gone.
Right.
And eventually he found a doctor that signed off on the discharge, and Oswald went back to America cold and bitter. His time in the Marines had been a total fucking failure.
Didn't go out in Japan at all?
He went out a little bit. I mean,
Okay.
we'll get to that here in a bit, but yeah, he did go out a bit. Well, from there, Oswald decided it was finally time to begin his defection to the Soviet Union. Now, a lot of people make a big deal as to how Oswald got the money to travel to Russia, but the truth really isn't that outlandish. Oswald had saved $1,500 from his Marine pay, which amounted to about 75% of his total salary.
Damn.
Now, Oswald did go out here and there while he was in the Marines, and he claimed to have paid for no less than 8 sexual experiences in Japan.
Ooh.
I would love to know what those are for Lee Harvey Oswald.
I do know what 3 of them are. Because this is
What
all
was
stuff
it?
he
What did
told
he-
his wife.
Okay.
He said that one was thin and very promiscuous.
I remember being with her, and I said, "Hey, what do you think of my potatoes?"
Oh.
And she said that they were big.
Oh, no kidding.
One was much older than he was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one was a big lady who'd cook for him.
Hey, there you go. He's got the trifecta. That's all you need.
That's every type of lady.
That's perfect.
But for the most part, like Lee Harvey Oswald just stayed in his barracks and read. So saving most of his salary is not a ridiculous notion whatsoever. All the rest of the other Marines actually used to bully him because he never went out. He never really chased after women. He never really did anything. They'd call him Mrs. Oswald, and when they came home drunk, they'd fucking grab him, turn on the shower, and throw him into the shower fully clothed.
I agree with him.
Yeah.
He liked to read when they all went out. He
Yeah.
read his communist lecture books, and they'd go out, and then he'd come back and he'd lecture them about how they lead frivolous lives, that they are all helping the capitalist system, and then they'd give him the old wonton treatment.
Yeah. Throw him in the shower.
And as to why he only had $200 in his bank account upon leaving for Russia, because that's brought up again and again and again. He only had $200. Probably just had the rest in cash. It's not that hard to figure out.
That's a smart way to travel.
Yeah.
But this whole world is very murky, because that's the one thing that the Russians do incredibly well. They've always been evil tricksters. They're fun. I kind of think they're fun. I think that maybe they're right sometimes.
You think the Russians are fun?
That's a controversial opinion.
A little bit.
Yeah, I'm not saying all their shit, but the way they like to play with people's minds, the tour world there was all controlled by the KGB.
It was like North Korea.
Yeah. No, I mean, and Henry just said it was fun.
It is kind of fun because it's like you didn't understand that you going to visit Russia, it's like almost you're kind of also on a job interview to be a spy.
Yeah.
But you don't know that that's happening until you're like at the Burger Czar getting a fucking repair, which is just bread. It's just bread with soaked in milk. And you're like, oh man, this is not what I expected, And they're like, you work for us. No, you work.
I think you
I'm
were.
making milkshakes.
I think we were greatly confusing the Soviet Union with the world of Dune. Nothing fun about it.
Milkshakes in Russia are just cups of milk that you swirl the milk around and hand it to somebody.
Oh.
Now, when Oswald tried to defect in 1959, it was a requirement that any foreigner visiting the USSR had to have a visa and purchase a preset package tour. Like I said, just like North Korea is today. You were essentially on a track. A person came, you had a guide that was assigned to you, and you had to hang out with that person the whole time.
Oh, what a lucky guide that must have been to pick up Lee Harvey Oswald.
No, he had a sour-faced woman that
Yeah.
seemed to be fine. She seemed to have a good time, but there's not a lot of good times going on in Russia.
No.
No, not in the Soviet Union. Now, conspiracy theorists who believe that Oswald was quite possibly a Russian KGB agent like to say that Oswald's visa application turnaround was suspiciously fast. But this is because they are working on assumptions, not facts.
Whoa, Marcus.
Whoa, that was the meanest thing you've ever said about someone. Wow. The way that you looked, assumptions, not facts. It's like, I'm sorry. Did I do something wrong?
Sorry.
Well, out of the thousands of tourist applications, only a few were given full reviews, and the average turnaround between application and answer was only 2 days.
Damn.
However, that isn't to say the KGB wasn't involved in the process. For those of you who don't know, the KGB was Russia's intelligence agency. These people, along with the CIA and the FBI, were the real soldiers of the Cold War between the United States and the USSR, and they were just as feared as our own intelligence agencies were.
Marcus, the real soldiers of the Cold War were the hockey teams. Everyone knows that. Miracle on Ice.
But the KGB was very capable, thorough, and also mean-spirited in a funny way.
You
Like,
are. What is wrong with you?
I don't know, man. I'm kind of with him.
How are they mean-spirited in a funny way?
Well, let's see this breakdown of how they played Lee Harvey Oswald.
Well, the KGB had defectors that came over to America's side for one reason or another. and the most valuable Russian defector in the history of the Cold War just happened to have jurisdiction over Lee Harvey Oswald's time in the Soviet Union. This man, Yuri Nosenko, was effectively imprisoned and tortured by the CIA for 5 years after he defected, just to make goddamn sure he was actually defecting and wasn't just a KGB double agent.
This is the kind of stuff that I read about the CIA in this go through. That, like, it really is very scary. They had a lot of power. They got to work very autonomously during this time period and got to do kind of whatever the fuck they wanted. So this guy, as soon as they kind of think you're a spy, because he showed up just saying, like, I'm ready to come to America. I'm ready to be in America. I have all these secrets. I'm going to tell you guys all the shit that I know from the KGB. They just fucking go through every inch of your life forever, trying to figure out, like, they watch you personally.
Well, the process of this was insane because this guy went to an American diplomat and told them, "Hey, I want to come over." It was 2 more years before they actually brought him over because they had to check and make sure. It's like, this guy isn't going to be a double agent. And then even after he came over, they kept him in prison for 5 years. Didn't let him have a toothbrush. All his fucking teeth fell out.
Well, you got to get the dentures.
They barely fed him. They kept moving him from place to place. They kept him locked in a fucking attic for like 2 years before they finally said, like, all right, you're good. What do you got?
You passed the test.
You passed the test. Here's 40 McDonald bucks. Enjoy yourself. And we actually also are going to gift you a franchise of McDonald's.
No kidding.
Well, it was Nosenko who had jurisdiction over tourists coming into the USSR. And he remembered Lee Harvey Oswald because Lee Harvey Oswald was a memorable fucking weirdo. He said that the KGB was not interested in Lee Harvey Oswald in the least bit. Yes, Oswald was a Marine, but he was so low on the totem pole that he had nothing to offer that the KGB didn't already know. The KGB had plenty of sources in the military already, and plenty of sources all over America. Lee Harvey Oswald was just some fucking doofus. See, a lot has been made in the conspiracy world about Oswald's time in Japan, because the base where Oswald was stationed also happened to be the home of America's U-2 spy planes, one of our biggest fucking assets.
Also, another MK Ultra hotspot, which is very, very interesting. He has another connection. Was this the place at Sugi Air Base that Lee Harvey Oswald, I almost said John Wilkes Booth, and Lee Harvey Oswald was given LSD as a part of his MK Ultra training? I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. But they said he showed up saying, I will give you all of these secrets. I worked at the U-2 base. I'll tell you everything that I know. And their response is, I love this sentence. He's like, there is nothing he can give that the sparrows had not have already sung to the world for them to hear.
Interesting.
Very Russian.
Yes.
Now, it is true that the Russians managed to shoot down a U-2 spy plane soon after Oswald arrived in the Soviet Union. Highly suspicious. However, that information was most likely given by Vernon Mitchell and William Martin, who were 2 high-ranking NSA operatives who defected to the USSR in 1960. If anybody had that fucking information, it was them and not Lee Harvey Oswald, because Lee Harvey Oswald had no access to anything having to do with the U-2 plane, because anything having to do with the U-2 was highly classified.
But Lee Harvey Oswald did have the recipe for that military mac and cheese, which is very nice.
I think that what's important to remember is that when you're making military mac and cheese, is that you want to make sure that there's no cheese in there.
Well, Oswald did work as a radar technician in air traffic control for a period of time, but that was separate from what the U-2 was doing. They did not just bring in the fucking U-2 spy planes on the same air traffic control that everything else was brought in. Everything having to do with U-2 operations was classified in a completely different secret fucking warehouse. But since Oswald had no real information, the KGB just didn't want him. And when Oswald tried to apply for Soviet citizenship, they flat out just denied his request. So like, no, we don't want you. Not only because he didn't have any information, but also because he was obviously mentally unstable.
Well, he started in his tourist package. He gets picked up from the airport. They're driving around being like, this is the Kremlin, this is a water fountain. And at some point, he's like, I'm going to move here. I'm going to be a spy for you guys. Like, he just tells his tour guide, I want to be a spy for you guys. And the KGB guy, who's obviously a KGB guy, he must be wearing a lanyard or something, or they get a special type of hat or like some kind of eye patch or something.
The tourist department was full of KGB agents.
Yeah, and so they're like, okay, we'll see what he's got, because it's so funny how like it's almost kind of informal. They're like, hey, this guy wants to be a fucking spy. Let's see what he does.
Yeah.
So they go and they get all his bullshit together, and then he walks into the room just being like, I'm the guy. I'm the one that's gonna bust it open. And they're all like, I'm sorry, comrade, I do not think that you are the guy.
All right, hold on. Let's test. Let's see if he's the guy. Okay, Lee, knock.
You get out of my house!
Ah, damn it!
Get out of my home!
And so, after his citizenship was denied, in a dramatic gesture, or as a last-ditch effort to stay in the country, Oswald lamely attempted suicide by slitting his wrists in the bathtub, knowing full well that his tour guide would be coming in to check on him within the hour.
See, there is something nice about dictatorships where they keep an eye on you 24/7.
But he couldn't even defect. He was so dumb.
Yeah.
But he couldn't even defect.
Well, he definitely made up for their assumption that he wasn't good enough at anything. That's for sure.
Well, this is what he wrote in his journal, which he so grandiosely called his historic diary.
Journal! It's a journal!
I am stunned. 6 o'clock evening. Received word from police official. I must leave the country tonight at 8 p.m. as visa expires. I spelt that wrong on purpose. I am shocked! My dreams! I retire to my room. I have $100 left. I've waited for 2 years to be accepted. My fondest dreams are shattered because of a petty official, because of bad planning. I plan too much! 7 p.m. I decide to end it. Soak wrist, no W, because I want to say the word faster, in cold water to numb the pain. I slash my left wrist, then plunge wrist in the bathtub of hot water. I think when Rima comes at 8 to find me dead, it will be a great shock. Somewhere a violin plays as I watch my life whirl away. I think to myself, how easy to die, and a sweet death to violins.
A little poetic in a Lee Harvey Oswald communist art kind of way.
A little dramatic.
Very dramatic. Oh, he is the son of a woman who doesn't like drama.
I tell you what, I don't like drama. Come to me. I'm a no drama mama. But if Bridget says one more fucking word at a meeting, say throws me under a bus one more time, I'm going to put her in her trash can. I'm going to roll her down a hill.
Oh, okay. Well, that's better than shooting the president.
Now, even Oswald himself said in the fucking entry he was well aware that someone was coming to find him in less than an hour after he slit his wrist. And he went across. He didn't go up. He didn't go up the road. He went across the tracks.
And again, this is not a recommendation,
No.
nor this is like, yes.
It was a cry for help.
It was a cry for help.
I mean, and not even a cry for help, really.
It wasn't.
I mean, the suicide attempt was not, the point was not his own death.
No, it was not psychological in nature. The
No.
whole point was to be like, I'm trying to show you how serious I am about staying in Russia. I'm real serious. But then it was barely a cut. He actually was nowhere near dying.
No. But the shitty thing is, it worked. Oswald was sent to a psych ward for 3 days where it was concluded that he was mentally unstable. But with this, the KGB had a choice. And strangely enough, geopolitical events had a bearing on that choice. The obvious choice was just to send him home. Get him the fuck out of here.
Get him the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
Get the fuck out of here.
Just go. But while Oswald was convalescing in a psych ward, President Eisenhower was holding a meeting at Camp David with Nikita Khrushchev, the premier of the Soviet Union. Now, these Cold War meetings were highly delicate affairs. No one wants to give an inch. And an American with a big fucking mouth being sent back to the United States with slashed wrists would be bad optics for the USSR. So, to keep Oswald out of the spotlight, they deemed him harmless and extended his stay in Russia without giving him citizenship. But Oswald just wouldn't keep quiet. And 3 days after his release from the hospital, he attempted another dramatic gesture. He went to the American embassy, threw his passport down on the consul's desk, declared himself a Marxist.
I am a Marxist.
And told them that he was going to tell the KGB everything he'd learned about military radar while he was in the Marines.
I am not an American. He was screaming, being like, take my citizenship, please. Take my citizenship. Like, he was screaming at this diplomat. And the guy is just staring at him because, because he's an American in Russia. He's just doing his job. He's just trying to, and he just goes, whatever. Okay.
He said, whatever, man. It's Friday. It's too late in the day to start the paperwork. Come back on Monday, I guess. They didn't take him seriously at all. Or at least
amazing.
They didn't, it was just a whatever type of moment, And as far as why Oswald was not immediately picked up by the Americans or detained at the embassy, it's again about optics. The Cold War between the U.S. and the Russians was largely a war of perception. And if it got out that a Marine was attempting defection, then it would look bad for the United States. Again, this is a highly delicate time.
They're going to make a meme about this. This is going to go viral, guys. We better be very careful. Better keep him over there. Better not ruffle feathers.
Maybe he'll get on Samantha Bee. Wouldn't that be fun if he was a guest on Samantha Bee because of this?
Oh, my God.
So instead of bagging him and sending him back to the U.S., the consul took the discreet route. He contacted someone in the Marines, told him, hey, there's some fucking idiot over here that says he's going to tell the KGB all about our radar. So the Marines just changed the codes. They go, all right. Yep. They just changed the codes over at the Air Force Base where Oswald was stationed, and that was it.
Is it the private that doesn't know any knock-knock jokes? Yeah, well, we remember him. He's a real D-bag.
You tell him again that I did not invite him. That I set out a dinner for one. There's dinner for one tonight. I also think it's very interesting just how coordinated everybody's efforts were. I know that this is where conspiratorial thought, just that it's very base, comes out, but the fact that the Cold War was happening. So on the outside, U.S. and Russia are vehement enemies. They are blood enemies about to destroy the world in order to make sure that one has more power than the other. They are ready to do a nuclear war, do a full no-holds-barred, mutual destruction. We're going to destroy everything. But on the inside, they are delicately agreeing of, how do we move through these waters? It's real. This is why conspiratory thought kind of gets fucking jammed in here, because you have to see that, our governments, they really do all kind of collude. I'll use the word collude in order to, there are backdoors to everything. Yeah. While we get one message, they are all working in a whole separate world.
It's diplomacy.
Yeah, it is absolutely diplomacy. And I think the Cold War, at least on this micro level, a lot of it was about plugging holes. Little hole, it's the little Dutch boy on the dike, just going and plugging hole after hole after hole. I can't just say plug holes without you two giggling.
Yeah. I was having fun. I'm just a boy.
Now, Oswald never went back to the embassy, but he wrote in his historic diary that the experience had filled him with elation.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Of course. It was such a huge, dramatic gesture.
But they didn't care.
Nope.
Okay.
But it was the gesture. He had done it.
But
he got it out.
But when you make the gesture and then they react with it's Friday. We'll do it Monday? Isn't that depressing?
I've just had so many of these where I'm screaming at a man behind a desk on a Friday afternoon, and they do that, being like, why don't you come back on Monday? The guy, especially when I was working in an office, just yelling to be heard. It's hard, man.
Yeah. I was in the middle of something. I'll come back on Monday.
I'll come back on Monday.
But despite this dramatic gesture, the CIA didn't open a file on Oswald for another year.
They really should have.
They really
To be fair,
should have.
This is the CIA being you got to take him kind of serious.
Yes,
he is really pushing hard here.
This is, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Incompetence. So, to further keep Oswald occupied and to make damn sure he knew nothing, the Soviet government set him up with a job in Minsk as a metal worker at a radio and TV factory, even though Oswald had told them he'd much rather do something involving economics or politics. You're going to send me to be a sheet metal worker? I want to be in the government, sir.
No, man, to each man's abilities, right? Isn't the idea of socialism? The idea is you're supposed to go and do what you are born to do, Lee Harvey Oswald, which is build televisions.
Yep.
You got to go do this job.
I mean,
You got
that's,
to go work in a factory.
he believed in that ideal until he got into the system and realized that his means were pretty fucking meager.
What do you mean I don't get to be the leader? I figured that I would be the leader. That's why I kind of like communism. I thought I was going to be the leader.
This is where the troll stuff, though, for the KGB comes in, right? So they put him in this little factory job. But all at the same time, now they are actively watching Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
As a part of it, and one of the guys, I believe it was Yuri, the way they described him is that they wanted to see his potential. They wanted to see what he would do. They called the term they said that he might be a good dangler, but I'm not quite certain what that means, but it seems that what it is, it's like essentially, it's a distraction. This is what I was saying. They like the unpredictable ones too. They like people that can go and be like, he is a great dupe that we can use, we can weaponize maybe.
Oh, useful
if
idiot.
he's the right type of dude.
Right.
And so they put him in a relatively, he got a good apartment assignment.
It was fine. It was average.
But the thing about the apartment assignment is that it's average, right? But most people had to have roommates and live together in kind of group homes, right? And share bathrooms and shit. He got technically a cusp position, which also diametrically opposes him to the new friends that he's going to have. And then they slowly but surely started flipping all of the friends that he was making naturally at the factory to inform on him. So eventually, Lee Harvey Oswald was just in a roving world of human microphones, all telling the KGB immediately what he's doing. Meanwhile, he's just fixing televisions and screaming how bad the food is.
Interesting. If you are in Berlin, there's a great museum that shows you what the Soviet living conditions were like. Did you do that museum?
The DDR museum?
Yes.
Well, I mean, but that's East German.
That was
that's East German living conditions. But yeah, it is a fascinating museum. It's
Very
a great
good,
fucking
yes.
museum.
And I love Dance Dance Revolution. That was so much fun.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, yeah, Oswald's apartment in Minsk, it was a little bit better because he did get his own room, but it was not the lavish VIP dwellings that a lot of conspiracy theorists try to make it out to be. He didn't have a TV. He didn't have a telephone. But, you know, it was about average.
He should have brought home a piece at a time like that Johnny Cash song and built his own TV. Was it 67, 87? Remember that?
Yeah, I
It was a
remember
good
that.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all the Soviet Union wanted was to get rid of Lee Harvey Oswald. Just got to get him out of the way.
I do love that everyone was just so confused on how to get rid of him.